So let us begin our comparison between physics and unified meditation worlds. In each of the following subsections, you will need to refer to the diagram. On the right hand side of each diagram will be that particular law of physics and a corresponding diagram. Then there will be an arrow that will say what would happen when you meditate to that particular law of physics. And then the answer would be given in the form of a diagram or image. In this text, I will be describing that diagram very briefly. I repeat that you do not have to take this particular part of the book too seriously or even remotely seriously. It's just for fun to add colors to your meditation. Also, with the various terminologies of physics, I was just hoping to add some class to your meditation. However, in no way I want you to be demoralized because you do not understand the various terms of physics that will be used here. So we are going to talk about motion at first. In the first diagram, you will see that there is a person who is falling off because he has tripped. According to Newton's first law, the person's body would continue in its motion forward, whereas his feet would be stopped. And this is the reason that the person falls over when he entangles his feet on a stone, as shown. However, in the spiritual world, if such a thing were to happen, then the person would not be stopped. In fact, even a wall could not stop that person, and the person would be able to walk through that wall. So, in your meditation, imagine that you are walking through the walls. Also, inertia wouldn't be a problem, and you would be able to move or stop at will without any external force, just with the sheer will power of yours. In the second diagram, you will see that a big truck is crushing a small car, and that is based on Newton's second law. It says that the heavier and faster the object is, the more force it will exert on the impact. However, like in the movies, in the spiritual world, we can become Superman, and a tiny human being can stop an airplane or can stop a huge building from falling, which is totally against the laws of physics. But in our meditation, this law doesn't apply, and you can lift anything with your little mass or small speed. In the final diagram, you see that there is a boat, and people are rowing. The boat moves because of Newton's third law of action and reaction. However, in the spiritual world, you can see that even in the sky, a boat would be able to be rowed. It doesn't have to have an equal reaction to move forward. So again, the sheer power of the will can cause the ship to fly anywhere or be riding anywhere. Next, we come to the force of gravity. We all experience it, as you see in the diagram, and it is pulling us towards the center of the earth. So what happens in the spiritual world is that the force of gravity isn't that strict, and if we want to stand upright, then we will. But if we want to hover above the ground with our legs up and heads down, that also we can. Thus, in meditation, the laws of gravity apply to us if we want, and they don't apply to us if we do not want. In the lower diagram, you will see the space-time continuum of Einstein. This is how gravitational force is explained. It just shows that a heavier object causes the lighter objects to rotate around it because of its weight. that creates a curvature in the space-line curvature. However, in the spiritual world, if we so desire, we can have the lighter object causing the heavier object to rotate around it by bending the space-time curvature by its will. Now we come to friction. In the diagram, you first see an object being dragged by the person, and when the surface is rough it's harder, and when the surface is smooth it's easier. Also, when we use rollers or balls, it's easier to move the object because the friction is less. Now, in the spiritual world, we would be able to change the friction at will, not having to smoothen the surface or use rollers. It would be very much like using the volume button. Also, you'll see that the parachute is deployed and the person is flowing slower because of the friction caused by the parachute in the air, and without such friction the person would fall. However, in the spiritual world you can create a friction without a parachute as you fall, just simply by spreading your hands or anything. So even if you fell off from far up in the sky, you would have a safe, smooth landing. That is because your friction is controlled by your willpower in the spiritual world. Now, in this diagram, you can see that there is a cloud and a thunder that has just occurred. In the physical world, we see the thunder first, and then we hear the sound. This is because the speed of light is faster than the speed of sound. However, in the spiritual world, our ability to see and hear is faster than that of the speed of light or the speed of sound. So would be able to see and hear before and after, or at the same time of the thunder. In the lower diagram, you'll see that the sound moves as a wave, and as a result, the sound can be heard on the sideways and not having to be directly in front of the sound source. And then the light needs to travel straight, and to see it, you would have to be in the straight line of the source. In the spiritual world, we have something called sound that is unstricken. As you can see, in the physical world, all the sound is made because one object or something strikes another thing, like here the forceps, but that doesn't apply in the physical world. Sound just creates itself from nothing and travels in all directions. Similarly, in the spiritual world, light is produced without any fuel or energy source. If you close your eyes, you will see the light usually. Now we come to electromagnetism. In the physical world, everything, even the earth, has got a north and south pole, and the currents, electromagnetic current flows as shown in the diagram. But in the spiritual world, there is no such poles, but instead there is the force of attraction and the force of repulsion. At the planetary level, we are attracted to some planets and we are repelled by some, and this magnetism connects us with those planetary objects. In the physical world, as per Maxwell's law, electricity produces magnetism and vice versa. In the spiritual world, we can create electromagnetic forces that attract other people and make them feel good or bad about you. In the physical world, the electromagnetic forces allow us to have various forms of communications, as you can see in the diagram. In the spiritual world, our brain itself produces certain magnetic or electromagnetic waves that enables us to have a telepathic communication with various people. In physics, as per the first law of thermodynamics, energy can neither be destroyed nor created but just transforms from one state to another. As shown in the diagram of the locomotive, here the steam is caused by the heat of the coal. Then that steam is passed through a mechanism, a piston, which converts that vapor energy into motion. The engine causes a horizontal up-down motion, and then the crankshaft transforms that motion into a rotary motion that causes the wheel to turn and the locomotive to move forward. Similarly, in the spiritual world, there are energies and they are transformed. The most common one is anger. It can be transformed into lust, or lust can be transformed into anger, and the same lust can be transformed into creativity. It just depends upon the device or the mental frameworks that you use. As per the second law of thermodynamics, nothing remains stable, and everything tends to become chaotic, meaning that the entropy increases. It's very simple. If you do not take care of your garden, then it will become a jungle. Similarly, if you do not clean up your house, then it will become a mess. That is entropy in the practical perspective. In the spiritual world, entropy also exists. It's always natural for people to fall from higher chakras or centers of consciousness to lower COCs. This is where the entropy increases. This means that people tend to become less refined from more refined, more idiotic from more intelligent, more cruel from being more kind. Our final lesson of physics is quantum physics. I used that example many times earlier on, so this is just a visualization of what I talked about earlier. As you can see in the diagram, there's a photon, and it's a double slit experiment being conducted. At one time, as you can see, the photon behaves like a wave, and it causes the film at the edge to bear the marks of the photon here at the 5 points. Then on the next diagram, you will see that the photon here behaves like particle, and this results into only two marks on the film. Now in the spiritual world, this quantum effect is real. We feel that we met our soul mate, and that would most likely mean that we are connected at the quantum level. Alternatively, we have various dualities in us, and sometimes we behave in one form and the other we behave in another form. Here I have illustrated the Ardhanarishwar picture of Lord Shiva. So he is both a man and a woman at the same time. So in the spiritual world, there are so many aspects of the same thing, and we do not know when they will manifest in a certain aspect, as we had discussed earlier with regards to the type of relationship between the physical world and the spiritual world. But this quantum behavior surpasses that example and embraces any kind of duality like here of man and woman identities. The final diagram here shows the concept of quantum entanglement. Basically, the photon is cut into half, and one half is taken to the North Pole and the other to the South Pole. Then the same double-slit experiment is conducted as above. The results are mesmerizing, and they appear as if the two halves of the photons are communicating one another because of the weird results that are being measured. Now, in the similar way, in the spiritual world, two people might be connected at the quantum level, as I told you earlier, in form of soulmates, and one person could be affected by the other person, and they feel a certain connection. That is quantum entanglement in the spiritual world. So we have finished with the various topics of physics and with my explanation of how they can be compared to the laws that govern the spiritual world. You might have noticed that the common thread along all those explanation is that in the spiritual world, the willpower of the soul and its desire causes the law to be altered. So it's your own world, and only your thoughts are your limits. Then, as I told you earlier, without limits, there is no fun. So it's the balance between having rules and having no rules. Then, eventually, by practicing to bend the laws of physics in the spiritual world, you will be able to rise up the 9 levels of superpower that I mentioned to you earlier. And that is a real objective of all this rather than just having fun. It is to increase the spiritual power through a concrete step by step process like this one. That is to compare the laws of physics with the spiritual world and being conscious to a high degree.